VL's Princess Sarah is an esoteric anime retro action RPG dungeon crawler with light time management elements. It's akin to the early Gameboy Zelda titles, except if Link had a debtor breathing down his neck the entire adventure. And when I say retro, I mean it. Hope you like yellowish green, because the filter doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And to add insult to injury, the dev did make higher-res, fully colored portraits of the characters. They're just not used in the game. Although when it comes to this style of game, there is an undeniable charm to it, and surprisingly, it doesn't seem to be copied as much in the indie scene as other retro series. Seeing a high-effort classic Zelda-like is actually a lot rarer than you'd think. Well, whatever, let's just get into this thing. After the peaceful country of Estasia is decimated by a demon invasion, the kingdom's royal family is slain, with the exception of the queen and the two princesses. The queen's fate is unknown, but the two sisters, Sarah and Mana, are taken captive by a powerful orc. The sisters spend most of their days as the personal asset for their cruel new master, until one day, Sarah finds her younger sister finally on the brink of death, which emboldens her to plan an escape. Sarah gets free from her cell and soon finds a sword. She then confronts the master, but is easily defeated by his sheer strength. She pleads mercy for her little sister, to which the master gives a proposal. If she can come up with a large sum of money, she will be able to buy both their freedom. Sarah will be allowed out during the day to take on jobs and earn money, but must return to the estate at night to serve him. She has a deadline of 1 month to earn enough, and so begins her adventure. The game lets you loose at this point. You need to get money however you can within the number of in-game days allotted. The core game loop has you going out during the day for quests and adventure, and then returning to the master's estate for the night when either Sarah is defeated or her resources and jobs are exhausted. Mana's cell room acts as your main base. The book lets you save progress. The shelf accesses the scene recollection menu, and that rupee-looking thing allows you to adjust special settings, but I wouldn't mess with it. I'm not completely sure, but it seemed to always disable certain content until the game is reset. In another room is a magic teleporter, which lets you fast travel to any dungeon or town that you've visited before. Heading out, Sarah finds her first low-level enemies. The combat is what you'd expect. You can set a primary physical weapon and a secondary magic spell. Right now, Sarah will only have the basic sword, but there's a few unique weapons and magic that can eventually be found. Weapons are rewards for completing dungeons, while spells can be bought from the town shop, with the exception of the last one. Defeating monsters gives experience, which will eventually cause Sarah to level up. Yes, unlike the older Zeldas, there is some light RPG mechanics at play here. Leveling up gives points to allocate in 4 stats. It's pretty simple, but it does allow you to build Sarah how you'd like. Physical weapons scale with strength, while magic spells scale with intellect. You could even do a pure mage build if you want, which some posts say is actually really OP if you can get far enough to get it off the ground. I personally went for a paladin build, a balance of strength and intellect, with a healing spell loadout. You can explore around the region, but most areas will be blocked off right now. It's best to head to the main town of Neches to start accepting quests. If you're ever unsure of what to do, you can listen to Sarah's current thoughts, which will sometimes give tips on where to go. Quests are the best way to earn money, but only one can be done a day, and they have an upfront cost to accept, so you can't just take on the hardest quests from the start. When you do accept a quest, it puts you in a closed-off region relevant to the objective. You can only leave if you either complete it or are defeated. Quests can range from simple mob slaying or item collecting to elite boss encounters. When Sarah returns back at night, the master can train her in one of several ways, and each session seems to increase her corruption, which unlocks new opportunities later. However, Sarah can also opt to rest for that night, but that means Mana will take the master's wrath in her stead. And at certain deadline milestones, special events will play rather than the usual training sessions. Although quests are the best source for money and XP, to actually progress further in the world, you'll need to complete dungeons found in the overworld. Dungeons require you to find a key to the final chamber and defeat the boss inside. The keys function a bit oddly in this game. Any key will work on any unlockable dungeon door, and the key chests seem to respawn. I even read a post that said you can get respawned keys from older dungeons to use in newer ones, but I never tested it myself. Bosses also have special moves which will pin Sarah with a unique animation depending on the enemy, and she needs to struggle hard enough to break free. The first overworld dungeon is the Bandit Cave, which has been causing trouble for the nearby townsfolk. Sarah heads in and slowly makes her way to the bandit leader. Being the first boss, his moveset is extremely simplistic. The bandit defeats Sarah and makes her a public asset of the gang. Eventually she is rescued and the bandits are defeated. This dungeon treasure is the battle axe. Physical weapons have the additional utility of unlocking new areas of the overworld. There are certain barriers or obstacles that can only be overcome with a specific weapon found from a dungeon. Technically, this is all optional, because your only real goal is to gather enough money, but completing all the dungeons will unlock the potential for achieving the good ending. Sarah then heads back to the estate for the night to placate the orc's wrath. After a few more nights of training, Sarah's corruption is high enough to take on alternative jobs. There's a guy in the corner of town who, after Sarah agrees to help him out, will begin offering to set up similar work for Sarah via sessions with private clients. These jobs typically don't pay as much, but unlike the guild quests, these can't be failed, so they are a safer bet. Also, unlike quests, they're not all available at the start. Sarah unlocks more as she does them. Sarah can only do one job activity a day, so if she does a client session, then she can't do a quest that day, and vice versa. A few days later, Sarah uses the axe to clear the wooden barrier and ascends up the mountain. There, she finds the second dungeon. Making her way to the end, she encounters the rock golem. This boss can be a bit tough. It spawns homing electric orbs and can do a frontal rock shower. Sarah fights valiantly, but is ultimately caught in the golem's grasp and incapacitated. Eventually, she comes to and escapes with the dungeon weapon, the crossbow. Unlike the other physical weapons, this one is a ranged attack, at the cost of being weaker, but it's not that much weaker for all the upsides it has. The bow's likely going to be your main workhorse from here on, because it doesn't require any ammo and fires 3 arrows at once, so it excels at doing continuous damage while keeping enemies at bay. It's not ideal for every room encounter because the projectiles can't phase through walls like melee swings can, but for most fights, it will dominate. The next day, Sarah takes on an older client who wants her to put on a special performance for him due to being too frail to participate himself. During this, the master summons Mana to his room to ensure she hasn't forgotten her place. Later that week, Sarah talks to the town mayor and provides him with the funds to repair a bridge, thus allowing access to the Western Forest. She eventually makes her way to this area's dungeon, which has some switch puzzles that you need to use the crossbow for, although I'm using the word puzzle pretty loosely. The boss here is an armored centipede. He's actually quite tough. He shoots small projectiles everywhere, plus he can burrow and re-emerge from seemingly random tunnel entries around the arena. I don't know if this guy has a grapple animation, because I couldn't seem to get it to trigger. He just immediately takes out my health when I got close. So whatever. Sarah just wins, I guess. This dungeon reward is the hammer. It's pretty good. It's slow but hits hard and does a small AoE. The crossbow is likely still going to be your main go-to, but the hammer is a good substitute when a room encounter doesn't suit the bow. Sarah makes another attempt at an honest way of living by taking on a guild quest to hunt a Yeti. However, she is quickly defeated and is made its personal asset. After she is eventually rescued, she comes to terms with the fact that she is more suited for those other jobs. She then meets with a particularly manic client who takes joy in torment. During all this, the master is training Mana extra rigorously to further break her down. A few days later, Sarah uses the hammer to clear the rocks that block the route to the ancient ruins. This is the final dungeon, and oh boy is it a doozy. It's really long, and they just throw everything at you. You really should be heavily stocked up on health and mana potions before you attempt it. I recommend picking up a few bulk value packs at the shop. Around halfway through the dungeon, you can find the final spell. It's really powerful, but the most mana costly. Eventually, Sarah reaches the Lord of the Ruins, an ancient dragon. This boss does a ton of damage, and I didn't want to risk having to do this dungeon over again, so I spammed magic from afar while chugging potions. In fact, that's what I did for these final remaining bosses, and it worked out quite well despite my build not being completely geared towards magic, so maybe it's true that is the meta. Sarah fights well, but she is overwhelmed by the dragon's sheer power and is taken as his personal asset. Afterwards, while the dragon slumbers, Sarah creeps into the treasure room and acquires the ultimate weapon, the Holy Sword. This will give her a fighting chance against her orc master when the time comes to face him. That night, after catching wind of how Sarah has primarily been making money, the master feels the need to trademark her, so future clients know who she ultimately belongs to. Later the next day, with Mana's psyche close to the breaking point, the master makes one final push for complete control. With the deadline very close at hand, Sarah finally acquires the necessary funds. She takes it to the master, but is shocked when he reveals that her sister Mana is already completely under his thumb and is unwilling to leave with her. If you did all the dungeons to acquire the Holy Sword and earned the required amount of money before the deadline, then this will allow you to challenge him to a final boss fight. This is the only encounter with multiple phases. For the first phase, he fights you normally with a pretty simplistic moveset, but after that, he reveals his true demon form. This portion is very projectile heavy, and remember to watch out for his large beam attack. In the end, the master proves too powerful and handily defeats Sarah, thus gaining both sisters back under his complete control. Months later, the girls have started carrying extra as the orc uses them to begin building his lineage. All the while, the princess sister's own kingdom becomes nothing but a distant memory. All in all, the game is pretty good. It's rare to see a heavy gameplay focus for this genre, and it can actually be quite challenging at times. It controls well with a gamepad, and that's how I recommend playing it, as some of the keyboard controls can be a bit unintuitive. The scenes are all right, but they really suffer from the visual aesthetic. For some events, it's hard to tell what you're even looking at. There was a lot of content that I had to skip over, so I encourage you to play the game yourself if this genre interests you. This dev actually has quite a large catalogue, and impressively, almost every title is in a different gameplay genre. Check their CN page if you want to keep track of the dev's upcoming projects. As always, remember to apply the publisher's patch to the Steam version before playing. Thanks for watching, and if you want the unaltered version of this video, then check the description. And don't forget to like and subscribe.